Few, if any of us, who have seen the waves of refugees in their thousands trekking out of Syria and into Europe can fail to have been moved. What is our world coming to? Few of us, if any of us, who have seen the pictures and heard the stories of hundreds of migrants packed into leaky boats or dying in the back of trucks, can fail to have been moved. What on earth is happening? Few, if any of us, who have seen the video clips of the fires in California that are razing forest and buildings to swathes of charcoal, or of the devastating floods in Japan washing homes and cars away, can help but wonder what we would do if we were living there, if they were our homes. Whatever is going on. Few, if any of us, if we know young people trying to buy a modest first home in Auckland, can help but ask, when will it end? What on earth has gone wrong? It is all so far from the vision and hope of the Genesis poet who wrote, God saw everything that he had made, and indeed it was very good. A few weeks ago, I reflected on the big story that we tell as Christians, and how in different times and in different contexts, those stories are dressed and glossed differently according to the purposes of the storyteller and the context in which they're being told. Today, we've heard one of our big stories. We've heard the creation myth from Genesis. This story is a magnificent poetic reminder to us to wonder about who we are as creatures of the earth. At each phase of the recitation, from the separation of the earth from the sky, the dark from the light, from the creation of plants and animals and creepy crawlies, all the way to humankind, the poet declares, God saw that it was good. To be creatures of the earth, sharing the earth and the sea and the sky with all the other creatures and plants, and hearing that it all is all so very good, is one thing. It warms our hearts, helps us to belong, makes us feel wonderful. But to imagine for 1 minute that all creation is there for our benefit because we are the pinnacle of God's creation is quite another thing. That sets us up for a fall, as the story of Adam and Eve prefigure. It seems to me that we have pinned too much on verses 26 and 28 of the Genesis poem. These verses include the words often translated from the Hebrew as dominion over and subdue. In our all too frequent Western predilection for power and control, we've stuck with these words and shaped our God story around them, believing that this poem provides us with our rationale for our human superiority over all things, that all aspects of creation as set out in that poem are there for our benefit. And if they don't seem to be working for us at the moment, well then, we're not above believing that a few earnest and well-phrased prayers will fix it. This perspective has found its way into many theological frameworks, even if we're not alert, into more progressive theology, where we're keen to see the God spark in ourselves. The ancient Greeks knew this thinking was erroneous. They knew that this was hubris, the most destructive aspect of being human. Thinking that we are equal to the gods with power over the dynamics of earth and over creaturely relationships, even as they had. And the ancient Hebrews knew this thinking was misleading too. And so that wonderful creation poem to remind us we are but one of God's creations, and all of creation was good, with its place and its contribution. In the Gospel of Mark, we're told of an occasion in which Jesus tries to point out to his friends who are wanting special favors that they're one of many and they have responsibilities, reminding them that they must look after others. They must serve the needs of the many and not be seeking privileges for themselves or think they're better somehow and deserve more. It must have been a salutary lesson for those friends after all their commitment and their hard work. Notwithstanding the warnings that are liberally scattered through our scriptures of what would become of us if we let hubris get out of hand, if we let our pride in being human and our sense that we can manage and control all things blind us to our limitations, we have continued along this path. And now we find ourselves on a precipice, as it were. And very soon our little planet Earth will be unable to help us. Planet Earth will be unable to keep restoring the harmony, the balance of creation that we keep destroying. It will be unable to keep cleaning the air we pollute, to continue purifying the water that we contaminate, to keep the seas stocked and the soil fertile. Our story needs retelling for our time. We, you and me, we are the storytellers today. And like all good myths, the story we tell needs the power to bring about change in the hearts and the minds of our contemporaries. But we've created a conundrum for ourselves, and this needs careful thought as we embark on our story retelling. For while we've taken to heart the story of the incarnation, God in human form, and have relocated the divine spark from heaven to earth and now to be found in each of us, and so brought that all-powerful King and Judge God to earth to live amongst us and within us as the vulnerable power of love and compassion, we haven't always recognized vulnerability and compassion as that God spark that we seek. And so, we failed to take on the responsibility of godly risk management for how we inhabit the earth. We haven't sought to live with gentleness and humility, caring for our companion creatures and for the ground beneath our feet. It seems the story we've been telling is of unending wealth. It seems we're failing to accept that the trajectory, the path of unending GDP growth that we're on is not about love and compassion at all, but rather about greed and hubris. It's time to wake up to the unwelcome fact that no matter how smart and how technologically advanced we are today, we cannot control the unintended outcomes of all we do, even when our intentions are good. To maintain our lifestyle, we're outstripping the natural processes of the earth to restore itself. We're destroying animals and plants at an alarming rate, we are destroying our own life-giving habitat. So let's reframe the poem. Let's recite it using a different interpretation of the Hebrew word rara. Instead of dominion and subdue, let us use caregiving and nurturing. Let us help the earth to fulfill its life-giving potential, and so be life-givers ourselves rather than life-takers. Be restorers, not destroyers. Be celebrators of abundance rather than hoarders in fear of scarcity. We need a partnership. We need the interdependence of earth and creatures and plants if humanity is to survive. But while we speak, while we retell the story of humanity's relationship with the earth in a different way, the urgency of our predicament requires we demand action by those who make decisions on our behalf. Whatever their political stripe, we need to see commitment to managing climate change by a move away from fossil fuels. We need to demand commitment to managing land fertility and its capacity to produce food. We need to hear commitment plans for restoring housing to the place of homes rather than investment commodities. We need evidence of commitment to wages that reflect the dignity of work and are sufficient to live on modestly. And in our turn, each of us, too, needs to consider our part and what we do in our personal lives about fossil fuels and the byproducts we consume, about the food choices we make, and our attitude and expectations about housing and wages. And then, we might say, it was the sixth day. God looked all around at everything that was made, light and darkness, earth and seas and sky, plants and birds and fish and creepy crawlies, the sun, the moon, and the stars. And God said, "That's good. That's very good." And then God took some time to think and to wonder about all that had been created. Then God said, "I need some help to care for all these wonders. Let there be humankind to help me. Let their hearts reflect my heart and be filled with love for all creation." And so it was. And God looked around again in wonder at all that was. Then God said, "That's good. That's very, very, very good." Amen.